The human recruit asked to remove her gravity limiter. The reinforced training floor cracked before she even moved. My name is Thresh, and I have been breaking recruits for the better part of 15 cycles. 15 cycles of watching every species in the galaxy think they have what it takes to earn Koldan certification. Spoiler alert, they do not. Most of them wash out in the first week, crying about the gravity adjustment or the combat protocols or how their specific biology makes everything unfair. Yeah, well, life is unfair. The mercenary business does not care about your feelings or your special dietary needs. The complex itself is a beautiful piece of intimidation architecture, all black stone and angular designs, built into the side of a mountain on Koldara Prime, where the gravity sits at a comfortable 1.4 standard, comfortable for us anyway. For the soft-worlders, well, that is where the fun begins. I nudged Vorak, my fellow instructor, a hulking Theraxian with forearms and an attitude problem that made mine look like a friendly suggestion. What have we got today? He consulted his datapad, mandibles clicking in what passed for Theraxian amusement. The usual mix of delusional and desperate. 3 Centauri scouts, already complaining about the temperature. 5 Regillian Corps dropouts, probably running from debt. 2 Manthar honor seekers who will quit when they realize honor does not pay medical bills. He paused, his compound eyes glittering with something approaching joy. And 1 human. I laughed. Actually laughed, which I do not do often because it encourages recruits to think I have a soul. A human? Just 1? Did the rest of her support group get lost? Just the 1. Vorak confirmed. Name is Riley Costas. Arrived on a transport from the outer colonies. Application says she is seeking combat certification for contract work. Contract work, I repeated, rolling my shoulders to work out the kinks from the morning training session. Right, because humans are known for their impressive combat records. I let the sarcasm drip from every word like acid from a reactor leak. Here is the thing about humans. They are adorable. No, seriously. Look at them. They come from some backwater planet called Earth in a nothing sector of space that nobody cared about until they invented faster-than-light travel like 50 cycles ago. 50 cycles. Some species have breakfast traditions older than human space exploration. They are small, squishy, have no natural weapons, no armor plating, no venom, no redundant organs, and they die if you look at them wrong. They need a very specific range of temperature, pressure, and atmospheric composition, or they just stop working. And yet here they come, stumbling into the galaxy with their wide eyes and their weird flat faces, convinced they can hang with species that have been perfecting warfare since before humans figured out agriculture. You remember the last human we had? Vorak asked, and I could hear the grin in his voice. Jensen something, I said, watching the entrance. Made it 3 days before the gravity sickness got him. Spent 2 of those days in medical. The 3rd day he tried to lift a standard practice rifle and threw out his back. Good times, Vorak agreed. The other instructors were gathering now, drawn by the same morbid curiosity that makes people slow down to look at transport crashes. Kess, a Voranthi female with scales that could deflect plasma fire and an undefeated combat record, sauntered over with that predatory grace her species is famous for. I heard we have entertainment arriving. Human recruit, I confirmed. Her laugh was sharp enough to cut. Oh, this should be over quickly. We did not have to wait long. The blast doors at the complex entrance cycled open with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and the new batch filed in. I could spot the human immediately, because of course I could. She stood out like a glimmerwing in a coal mine. Riley Costas was, and I am being generous here, unimpressive. She was maybe 1.6 meters tall, which is short even by human standards if the database is accurate. Slim build, looking like a strong breeze would snap her in half. She had dark hair pulled back in some kind of practical knot, brown skin and these weirdly soft brown eyes that made her look perpetually surprised. She wore standard issue fatigues that seemed 2 sizes too big, and she carried her gear bag like it weighed more than she did. That is the human? Kess asked, disbelief making her voice climb half an octave. That is what the manifest says, Vorak replied, checking his pad again like maybe the information would change if he looked hard enough. Riley was looking around the complex with that expression humans get when they are in over their heads, but too stubborn to admit it. I have seen it 1,000 times on 1,000 different faces, the slight widening of the eye, the way she swallowed hard when she got a good look at the other recruits, most of whom had at least 50 kilos on her and actual natural defenses, the tiny adjustment of her shoulders, like she was trying to make herself look bigger. It was not working. "Place your bets, folks," I called out to the assembled instructors. "I give her until tomorrow morning before she is on a transport home." "Tonight," Kes countered. "After the first combat drill." "You are both being generous," said Vorak. "I say she does not make it through orientation." The other recruits were noticing the human now too. I saw the Rigelians exchanging glances and laughing behind their breathing apparatus. The Centauri scouts were whispering among themselves, probably placing their own bet. Even the Monthar, who usually took the high road about honor and respect, looked skeptical. Riley must have felt every eye in the complex on her, but to her credit, she did not run. She just straightened her back, adjusted her grip on her gear bag and walked toward the check-in station with her chin up. Brave, stupid, or some combination of both. With humans it was usually both. I pushed off from the archway and strolled toward the check-in area, Vorak and Kes falling in behind me. Might as well get this over with. The sooner we processed her, the sooner she could attempt the first test, fail spectacularly, and I could get back to training recruits who actually had a chance of surviving. "Riley Costas," I called out when I got close enough. She turned, and up close she looked even more fragile. "That is me. You must be Instructor Thresh." Her voice was steady. I will give her that. No tremor, no hesitation. She even managed something that might have been a smile, though on that flat human face it was hard to tell confidence from terror. I confirmed, crossing my arms and letting my full 2.3 meters of height do the intimidating for me. "Welcome to Kuldan Training Complex. Before we begin, I need to ask you a question." "Sure," she said, still with that bizarrely calm expression. "Are you absolutely certain you are in the right place?" Riley, to her credit, did not even blink at my question. "Yes, Instructor. I am exactly where I need to be." Famous last words, right? I have heard variations of that statement from approximately 300 recruits who were not in fact where they needed to be. But fine, if she wanted to learn the hard way, who was I to deny her the educational experience? "Orientation is in 30 minutes, I told her, gesturing toward the facility corridor. "But first we do baseline assessments. Physical conditioning, reflex testing, gravity acclimation, standard procedure. The conditioning facility is through those doors. Report there immediately." She nodded, shouldered her gear bag and headed off without another word. I watched her go, that tiny figure disappearing into the massive corridor, and I swear Vorak actually sighed next to me. "I almost feel bad," he muttered. "Do not," I replied. She signed the waiver. "The conditioning facility is where we separate the pretenders from the contenders. It is a massive room, easily 200 meters across, with equipment designed to test every muscle group of every known species, resistance machines, gravitational plates, impact absorbers, the works. More importantly, it is where recruits get their first real taste of Kuldan gravity at full intensity. We keep the entrance corridor at standard gravity as a courtesy, but the facility itself, 1.4 standard, no exceptions, no assistance. By the time I made it down there, Riley was already inside. So were about half the other recruits. And oh, it was exactly as entertaining as I expected. One of the Rigelians was face down on the mat, breathing apparatus working overtime, looking like someone had dropped a building on him. The Centauri scouts were clustered near the entrance, clearly reconsidering their life choices. A Manthar was attempting to use the leg press machine and managing about a quarter of the range of motion he probably had back on his homeworld. And there, in the middle of this beautiful disaster, was Riley Costa, standing upright and looking around with that same mildly curious expression she had been wearing since she arrived. "Wait, what?" I stopped mid-stride and actually stared. Vorak nearly walked into me. "Is the human not affected by the gravity?" he asked. And I could hear the confusion in his voice because it matched what I was feeling. "She should be," I said slowly. Humans were from a light gravity world. I had checked the database after Jensen, whatever his name was, washed out. Earth was 0.97 standard gravity. These people should be struggling just to stand up straight in here, let alone walking around like they were at a casual social gathering. Riley had moved to one of the resistance machines, a pull-down bar system that we usually used for upper body assessment. She was examining it with the kind of focus that suggested she was actually planning to use it. Several other recruits had noticed her now and were watching with the same morbid fascination that I was feeling. That is when I noticed it. The band on her left shoulder. It was maybe 10 centimeters wide, made of some kind of dark metal with a faint blue glow around its edges. It looked almost decorative, like jewelry or some kind of cultural thing, but it was clearly technological. There were tiny radouts on its surface, Numbers or symbols I could not quite make out from this distance. I walked over, Vorak trailing behind me like he always did when something interesting was happening. "Costas," I called out. She turned, hands still on the pull-down bar. "Yes, instructor? What is that on your shoulder?" She glanced down at the band like she had forgotten it was there. "Oh, this? It is my gravity band. Standard issue for humans working off-world." "Your gravity band," I repeated, because sometimes saying things out loud helps your brain process information it does not want to accept. "And what exactly does a gravity band do?" "It helps with adjustment," she said in the same tone someone might use to explain that water is wet. "You know, for different planetary gravities, Earth standard is a bit different from most civilized worlds, so we wear these to make things easier." Vorak leaned in, mandibles clicking with interest. "A device to help you adjust to heavier gravity? That is actually quite clever. Terran engineering at its finest, I suppose." Riley smiled, and there was something in that smile that should have warned me, but I was too busy being smug. "Something like that, yes." See, this made perfect sense to me. Humans were from a light gravity world, so obviously they needed technological assistance to function in normal gravity. The band was probably projecting some kind of field that made the gravity feel less oppressive to her weak, fragile human body. It was honestly kind of sad. Most species adapted naturally to gravitational variance within a few days, but humans needed to strap on a machine just to walk around. "Well," I said, unable to keep the condescension out of my voice, "at least you came prepared. Smart thinking. Bringing assistive technology. We try to plan ahead," Riley agreed, and was that amusement in her voice? No, probably just nervousness. Kess had wandered over now, attracted by the gathering crowd. "Does it actually work?" she asked, eyeing the band with professional skepticism. "Or is it psychological? I have heard some species respond well to placebos." "It works," Riley assured her. "Very well, actually. Adorable," Kess said, though her tone suggested she meant the opposite. "Humans and their gadgets. What happens if it breaks? Do you just collapse?" "I would be fine," Riley said, and there was definitely amusement now. "Just might have some trouble with fine motor control until I readjusted." I was about to say something devastatingly sarcastic when one of the Regilians finally pulled himself to the equipment area and attempted the same pull-down bar Riley was standing next to. He grabbed the handles, pulled with what was clearly all his strength, and managed to move the weight stack maybe 10 centimeters before giving up with a wheeze that sounded painful. "Your turn, human," Kess said, gesturing at the machine. "Show us what that fancy band of yours can do." Riley looked at the machine, then at us, then back at the machine. "Sure," she said. "Just one thing first, if that is okay." "What?" I asked. "Can I take off my band? It is kind of uncomfortable during exercise." The entire room went quiet. Even the Regilian stopped wheezing. Vorak laughed first, that chattering sound Tavarixians make when they are genuinely entertained. "You want to remove your assistance device? Here? In 1.4 gravity? I mean, if it is against the rules I can leave it on," Riley said, hand already moving toward the clasp. "But it does chafe, and I was hoping to get accurate baseline numbers." Kess was grinning now, showing all her teeth. "Oh no, by all means, remove it. Let us see how well humans perform without their crutches." I should have stopped it. Looking back, I should have absolutely stopped it. But in my defense, I was too busy anticipating the sight of Riley Costas crumpling to the floor like a puppet with cut strings, and the valuable lesson she was about to learn about honesty and application materials. "Go ahead," I said. "Take it off." Riley smiled, bright and genuine, and reached for the clasp on her shoulder. "Okay," she said, "but do not say I did not warn you." Before Riley could actually unclasp the band, a voice boomed across the conditioning facility like a small earthquake with a superiority complex. Wait. Do not tell me we are about to witness a human attempt physical activity." I turned to see Baxel striding toward us, and when I say striding, I mean each step made the floor plates vibrate. Baxel was Kronth, which meant he was built like a mobile fortress with anger management issues. 3 meters tall, easily 400 kilos of muscle, bone plating, and what I can only describe as concentrated aggression. His species evolved on a high-gravity world where everything was trying to kill everything else, and they responded by becoming unkillable. He was also, unfortunately, one of my fellow instructors specializing in hand-to-hand combat and advanced warfare tactics. Great at his job, terrible at literally everything else, including basic social interaction. "Baxel," I said, keeping my tone neutral because the last time I snarked at him, he put me through a wall, playfully. "We are conducting baseline assessments. On the human? He looked down at Riley the way someone might look at a particularly unimpressive insect. This should be brief. The other recruits were gathering now, forming a loose circle around the resistance machine. Nothing attracts a crowd quite like impending humiliation. I could see it in their faces. That mixture of relief and anticipation. Relief that they were not the ones about to embarrass themselves. Anticipation because watching someone else fail made their own struggles feel less pathetic. Riley, to her credit, did not look intimidated. She looked up at Baxel, craning her neck to take in all 3 meters of him, and just nodded politely. "Hello, you must be one of the combat instructors." "I am Instructor Baxel," he rumbled, crossing his massive arms across his chest. "And you are the human who thinks she can earn Koldan certification." "Riley Costas," she said, extending her hand in that weird human greeting gesture. "Nice to meet you." Baxel stared at her hand like she had just offered him a live grenade. Nobody moved to shake it. After an awkward moment, Riley lowered it, completely unbothered. "Tell me, Riley Costas," Baxel said, leaning down to bring his face closer to her level, which just made the size difference more ridiculous. "Have you ever completed a pull-down exercise before?" "A few times," Riley admitted. "Back on Earth anyway." "On Earth," Baxel repeated, then laughed. It sounded like rocks grinding together. "Where the gravity is, what? 0.97 standard. Practically zero, Jang." He straightened back up, looking around at the assembled crowd. "I have a proposal, a simple demonstration. You small human, versus this machine. If you can complete 10 repetitions at standard resistance weight, I will personally apologize for doubting you." Brock clicked his mandibles nervously. "Baxel, the human has not even been cleared for full assessment yet." "It is fine," Riley interjected, and I swear there was eagerness in her voice. "I am happy to demonstrate." Oh, this was going to be spectacular. Standard resistance weight on these machines was calibrated for average mercenary recruits, which meant species that actually had combat-viable physiology. We were talking about moving 150 kilos through a full range of motion. The Regillian had barely budged it. The Manthar had managed 3 partial reps before giving up, and here was Riley Costas. All 1.6 meters and maybe 60 kilos of her, agreeing to try it like Baxel had asked her to pick up a drop stylus. "Excellent," Baxel said, grinning in a way that showed every one of his bone-crushing teeth. "Please proceed. Show us what human strength looks like." The crowd pressed closer. I saw a few of the recruits already pulling out their communication devices, probably to record this for posterity, or for laughs back home. Probably both. Riley stepped up to the machine, examining the weight stack with a critical eye. She tested the handles, adjusting her grip a few times. Then she paused and looked back at us. "Actually," she said, "would it be okay if I removed my gravity band first? I really do not want it interfering with my form." The laughter started immediately. One of the Centauri scouts actually doubled over, his translator struggling to keep up with his wheezing. Kess was shaking her head, scales rippling with suppressed amusement. Even Vorak could not quite hide his mandible clicking. Baxel's grin widened. "Oh, please, by all means, remove your assistance device. Let us see the true capability of humanity." "You are sure?" Riley asked, hand on the clasp. "Because once I take it off, things might get a little intense." More laughter. I was smiling too. I will admit it. The audacity of this human pretending that removing her gravity support would somehow make her stronger. What did she think was going to happen? That she would magically become more capable without technological assistance? "I insist," Baxel said, gesturing magnanimously. "We believe in fair testing here. No technological advantage." "Okay," Riley said, and her fingers found the clasp mechanism. "But seriously, you might want to step back a bit." "We are fine right here," I assured her, crossing my arms and settling in to watch the show. This was it. The moment every instructor lives for. When a cocky recruit realizes that confidence and capability are two very different things. When reality comes crashing down and teaches a lesson that no amount of classroom instruction can match. I had seen it hundreds of times. The sudden realization, the embarrassment, the deflation of ego. It never got old. Riley shrugged, smiled that strange human smile again, and pressed the release button on her gravity band. "Do not say I did not warn you," she repeated, and then everything went absolutely insane. The clasp released with a soft click, barely audible over the ambient noise of the facility. What happened next was not soft. Not even a little bit. The floor cracked, not like a small fracture. Not like the wear and tear you expect from heavy equipment and combat training. I mean the reinforced titanium composite floor plating that was rated to handle Kront battle mechs and siege equipment. That floor spider-webbed outward from where Riley was standing in a circular pattern that spread 3 meters in every direction. The sound was like a gunshot. Sharp, violent, immediate, and then the air moved. I do not mean a breeze. I mean the atmosphere in the entire facility shifted, displaced by something that my brain could not immediately process. It felt like standing too close to a ship's thruster wash, that sudden pressure change that makes your ears pop and your balance falter. Riley had not moved. She was still standing in the exact same spot, one hand holding the gravity band that she had just removed, the other hanging loosely at her side, but everything about her presence had changed, the weight of her, the space she occupied. It was like reality had suddenly decided to render her in higher definition, and the resolution was absolutely terrifying. I stumbled backward. Not intentionally, my body just decided that being closer to Riley Costas was a bad survival strategy and acted accordingly. Vorak made a chittering sound of alarm and backpedaled so fast his legs tangled with each other. Kes, who prided herself on never showing fear, had her scales fully extended in a defensive posture I had never seen her use outside of actual combat. The recruits scattered like prey animals spotting a predator. The Centauri scouts were pressed against the far wall, breathing apparatus working overtime. One of the Regillians had actually fainted. The Manthar were backing toward the exit. Honor be damned, apparently. Baxel, massive, immovable, 300-kilo Baxel had gone completely still in that way large predators do when they encounter something they cannot immediately categorize as food or threat. His bone plating had shifted, covering his vital areas, an instinctive response his species had evolved over millions of years. The floor beneath Riley groaned, the metal bending slightly under pressure it was never designed to handle. "Oops," Riley said, looking down at the damage with what appeared to be genuine concern. "Sorry about that, I should have been more careful. The transition is always a little rough." Her voice was calm, conversational, like she had just accidentally bumped into someone in a corridor instead of fundamentally altering the structural integrity of a military-grade training facility by simply existing. My brain was working overtime trying to process what I was seeing, trying to make it make sense. The gravity band, the adjustment device. I thought, it was helping her cope with heavier gravity than she was used to. We had it exactly backward. Oh ancestors, we had it exactly backward. The band was not compensating for heavy gravity. It was suppressing her. Earth's gravity was not 0.97 standard, or if it was, that was not the whole story. Humans had evolved on a death world where the gravity was so intense that their bodies had adapted to become whatever this was. Instructor Thresh? Riley's voice snapped me back to the present. "Are you okay? You look pale. Well, paler than usual, I guess. I do not really know what your species' normal coloration is." "What?" I managed to croak out, my voice sounding strange even to my own ears. "What is that band actually doing?" Riley held it up, examining it like it was the most normal thing in the galaxy. "It is a gravitational suppression field generator. Creates a localized field that simulates Earth standard gravity around my body. Most humans wear them when we are off-world because, well, most planets have significantly lower gravity than home, and we tend to accidentally break things, or people, mostly equipment though. Usually. How much?" Vorak whispered, and I had never heard him whisper before. "How much is Earth's actual gravity?" Riley tilted her head, thinking. "Depends on where you measure from. The equator is a bit lighter than the poles, but average surface gravity is about, 9.8 meters per second squared. I think that translates to roughly 3.2 standard, maybe 3.3. She paused. I am not great at the conversions. Math was never my best subject. 3.2 standard. 3.2. Humans evolved in gravity more than 3 times what we considered normal. What we trained in. 1.4 standard. What we used to break soft-worlders and teach them humility, was less than half of what this human considered normal. What she lived in every single day of her life. And the band, Kes said, her voice tight, keeps you at Earth gravity levels. "Oh no," Riley said, laughing like Kes had just said something funny. "That would be way too heavy for most environments. It compensates down to about local standard plus a little bit. Keeps us functional without causing too much damage. Like I said, it is mostly so we do not break things by accident." She was standing in Kuldaran gravity, 1.4 standard, the same gravity that had Regillians face down on the mats and Centauri reconsidering their career choices. And she was calling it too light. She was existing in less than half her home gravity and treating it like it was barely noticeable. "So right now," I said slowly, each word feeling heavy in my mouth, You are in gravity that is less than half what you grew up with. Right, Riley confirmed. It is honestly kind of nice. Very bouncy. Liberating. You know, bouncy. She called 3 times fatal gravity bouncy. The floor cracked again. Just slightly. As Riley shifted her weight, maybe, Baxel rumbled, and his voice had lost all of its earlier confidence. Maybe you should put that back on. Oh, Riley said, looking around at the assembled instructors and recruits, all of whom were maintaining what I now recognized as a completely sensible distance from her. Yeah, probably a good idea. I forget how fragile infrastructure can be on lighter worlds. Give me just a second. She raised the band toward her shoulder, moving slowly and carefully like someone trying not to spook a dangerous animal. Except we were the ones who needed to not be spooked. We were the dangerous animals in this scenario. Or at least we thought we were right up until about 30 seconds ago. Wait, Baxel said, and his voice had taken on a quality I had never heard from him before. Uncertainty. Before you put that back on. The demonstration. You agreed to 10 repetitions. Every single being in that room turned to stare at him with expressions that ranged from disbelief to outright concern for his mental health. Baxel, Vorak hissed. Perhaps now is not the time. She agreed. Baxel insisted. But he sounded less like he was issuing a challenge and more like he was trying to convince himself that he still had some control over this situation. He did not. None of us did. 10 repetitions at standard resistance weight. That was the term. Riley looked at the pull-down machine, then at Baxel, then back at the machine. I mean, sure, if you still want me to, but I should warn you, without the band, I might not have the fine motor control calibrated correctly. I have been wearing it since I left Earth, so my proprioception is a little off without it. Just do the exercise, Baxel said, and it sounded more like a plea than a command. Okay, Riley said, setting the gravity band down carefully on a nearby equipment bench. The bench groaned under what should have been negligible weight. But seriously, everyone might want to back up a bit more. We did, immediately. Even Baxel retreated a few steps, though he tried to make it look casual. Riley approached the pull-down machine, each footstep leaving small stress fractures in the floor plating. She was moving carefully now, deliberately, like someone navigating a room full of fragile objects, which, I realized with creeping horror, was exactly what she was doing. We were the fragile objects. She sat down on the machine's bench. The frame groaned. The hydraulics hissed as they automatically adjusted to compensate for weight distribution, and then hissed again, louder, like they were confused about what they were being asked to compensate for. Standard resistance is 150, correct? Riley asked, looking at the weight stack. Yes, I managed to say. Cool, she said, reaching up for the handles. Here we go. She pulled. The weight stack, all 150 kilos of it, designed to challenge species that could bench press small vehicles, moved like it was filled with air. Just whoosh, straight down, full range of motion, smooth as silk. Riley did not even seem to notice the resistance. 1, she counted. Up, down. 2, up, down. 3, she was not straining. Not even a little bit. No tension in her shoulders, no gritting of teeth, no shaking muscles. She looked like someone doing a warm-up exercise. Bored. Almost. 4, 5, 6. The machine was rattling now. The entire frame shaking because it was being used in ways it was never designed to handle. The pulleys were screaming. Literally screaming. Metal on metal. Friction and stress and mechanical components begging for mercy. 7, 8. One of the Centauri scouts made a sound like a wounded animal. I did not blame him. 9. Riley paused at the top of the movement weight stack, fully elevated, and looked over at Baxel. Did you want me to do these slowly, or is this pace fine? Baxel said nothing. I am not sure he could. His bone plating was fully extended now, covering every vulnerable point on his body, an instinctive reaction to a perceived threat. Some deep lizard brain part of his species' survival instinct was screaming at him that he was in the presence of an apex predator. I will just finish, Riley said cheerfully and pulled one more time. 10. There we go. She released the handles, and the weight stack dropped with a crash that echoed through the entire facility. The machine's frame had bent slightly during the exercise. Actual structural deformation. This equipment was rated for Kronth combat specialists, and a human who described herself as average had just warped it by doing a basic pull-down exercise. Riley stood up, brushing off her hands. Was that okay? I feel like maybe I should have gone slower. The equipment here is a lot more delicate than what we have back on Earth. Delicate. She called military-grade training equipment designed to withstand artillery strikes delicate. How? Kess finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. How is that even possible? You are so small, dense bone structure, Riley said, like she was reciting from a textbook. Increased muscle fiber efficiency, compact mass distribution. When you evolve in 3+ standard gravity, you either adapt or you die. We adapted. She smiled, but it did not reach her eye. Well, the ones who survived adapted. Earth has a pretty intense evolutionary pressure situation. A death world, Vorak said, and it was not a question. We prefer to call it home, Riley replied. But yeah, I guess by galactic standards Earth is classified as a high-gravity, high-danger environment. Extreme weather patterns, tectonic instability, aggressive megafauna, the works. It is not that bad once you get used to it.
Not that bad.
Earth was a nightmare planet that crushed anything soft under 3 times normal gravity, while hurricanes and earthquakes and predators tried to kill whatever the gravity did not. And humans called it not that bad. The bands, I said, my brain finally catching up to the implications. All humans wear them off-world. Standard protocol, Riley confirmed. Required by most planetary governments, actually. After the incident on Nexus Prime where a human got startled and accidentally put their hand through a reinforced security door, the Galactic Council strongly suggested we implement mandatory gravity suppression for all human travelers. She looked embarrassed. It was a whole thing. Very awkward. Lot of apologies. Some reparations. Through a security door, Kess repeated flatly. It was reflex, Riley said defensively. Someone jumped out trying to scare them as a prank. Fight or flight response kicked in. Could have happened to anyone. No, it could not have happened to anyone. Because anyone else would not have the raw physical capability to punch through reinforced security doors by accident. Baxel had moved to the resistance machine, examining the bent frame with something like reverence. Or horror. Possibly both. You did this barely trying, he said. I did not want to break it completely, Riley said. Replacement equipment is expensive and I am trying to make a good first impression. First impression. Right. Because accidentally destroying the structural integrity of the facility and demonstrating that you could casually overpower literally everyone in the room was a great foundation for future relationships. Riley, I said, and I was proud of how steady my voice was. When you applied for Koldan certification, did you mention any of this in your application materials? She looked confused. Mention what? That you are from a high-gravity world, that you are physically capable of this. I gestured at the cracked floor, the bent machine, the general aura of devastation her mere presence had created. Oh, she said, understanding dawning. I mean, it was all in my species classification information. Homo sapiens, Earth origin, standard physiological details. I assumed you would look that up during the application review. I had looked it up. I distinctly remembered looking it up. 0.97 standard gravity. It said 0.97, right there in the database. Vorak, I said quietly. Pull up the Earth entry in the species database. He consulted his datapad, mandibles clicking nervously. Earth, Sol system. Gravity listed as 0.97 standard. Atmosphere oxygen-nitrogen mix. Temperature range suitable for carbon-based life. Native species Homo sapiens. Classification pending. Classification pending. I repeated. What does that mean? Riley shifted uncomfortably. So humans only achieved FTL about 50 cycles ago, right? We are still pretty new to the galactic community. The full species classification process takes time because they need to send survey teams and do environmental assessments and catalog everything. But Earth is kind of, well, difficult to survey. Why? Vorak asked. Because everything tries to kill the survey teams, Riley said simply. The gravity makes most species too sick to function. The weather patterns are extreme enough to ground ships. The native wildlife is aggressively territorial. Last I heard, they have gone through 6 attempted survey missions and they are all still Felice as incomplete. 6 survey missions. 6 teams of trained xenobiologists and environmental specialists. And Earth had defeated all of them. So the database entry is preliminary. I said, understanding washing over me like cold water. Based on initial scans. Probably? Riley shrugged. I honestly do not pay much attention to the bureaucratic stuff. I just wanted to get certified so I could start taking contracts. Kess was staring at Riley with an expression I had never seen on her face before. You said you are average. Average for humans. Yeah, Riley confirmed. Maybe a bit below average actually. I am kind of short and I never really focused on strength training back home. Most humans could probably do better on that pull-down exercise. Better. Most humans could do better. Which meant that Riley, who had just destroyed our equipment and our assumptions with equal efficiency, was on the lower end of human physical capability. "How many humans are there?" Bexel asked, and his voice had gone very quiet. Riley thought for a moment. "Last census was around 11 billion, but that is just Earth. We have colonies now on about 40 worlds. Growing pretty fast actually. 11 billion, 40 colonies. An entire species of Deathworld apex predators spreading through the galaxy, and we had been treating them like a joke. Like they were fragile, weak, barely worth noticing." I thought about Jensen, the last human recruit, who washed out in 3 days. The gravity sickness, the thrown out back. He must have been wearing a malfunctioning band, or maybe not wearing one at all. Trying to push through, his body used to 3 times the resistance, suddenly operating in what must have felt like almost 0 G. No wonder he could not function. He was probably bouncing off the walls, unable to control his own strength, terrified of accidentally hurting someone, and we mocked him for it. "Riley," I said carefully, "that demonstration you just did, was that difficult for you at all?" She shook her head. "Not really. It was like lifting a bag of groceries. Maybe a small child." She paused. "A human child. I do not know how much your species' children weigh." A bag of groceries, 150 kilos, was equivalent to her carrying groceries. "I think," Vorak said slowly, "we may have made some errors in our initial assessment." That might have been the understatement of the century. Riley picked up her gravity band, holding it carefully. "Should I put this back on now? I really do not want to cause any more property damage." The Galactic Council was very clear about humans being responsible for repairs. "Yes," I said immediately. "Please. Right now. Immediately." She smiled that strange human smile and pressed the band back onto her shoulder. The clasp clicked shut, and the air in the room subtly shifted again. The pressure normalized. Riley's presence became less overwhelming, contained once more by technology that was suppressing enough force to crack titanium plating. "Better?" she asked. "Much," Baxel said, and he actually sounded relieved. Riley looked around at all of us, at the instructors and recruits who had scattered to the edges of the room, at the damaged equipment and cracked floor. "So," she said brightly, "what is next in the orientation process?" I looked at Vorak. Vorak looked at Kess. Kess looked at Baxel. Baxel looked at the bent resistance machine like it might have answers. "Training," I finally said, because what else was there to say? "Standard combat protocols, weapons certification, team exercises." "Sounds great," Riley said, enthusiasm evident in her voice. "I have been looking forward to this for months." "Oh, one question though." "Yes?" I managed. "Is all the equipment here rated for standard gravity resistance? Because I can requisition human-grade equipment from Earth if needed. It is a bit more robust." Robust. Human-grade equipment was robust, which meant it was built to withstand 3.2 standard gravity and whatever terrifying forces humans casually threw around back on their nightmare homeworld. "We will look into it," I said weakly. Riley beamed. "Perfect. This is going to be so much fun." "Fun." Right. I had been breaking recruits for 15 cycles. I had seen every species in the galaxy attempt Cold-On certification. I thought I understood the limits of biological capability, the ceiling of what was physically possible for carbon-based life forms. I understood nothing. Humanity had been underestimated. Catastrophically, completely, fundamentally underestimated. We had looked at them, seen their soft skin and their fragile-looking frames, evaluated them against the galactic standard that we thought was universal, and we assumed they were weak. We were not just wrong. We were not even in the right conceptual neighborhood of correct. And Riley Costas, average human, standing there with her suppression field firmly in place and her bright smile firmly attached, had just rewritten every assumption I had about what was possible. "Instructor Thresh?" she asked. "Are you okay? You still look pale." "I am fine." I lied. I was not fine. None of us were fine. Everything had changed in the span of 10 repetitions, and the galaxy was suddenly a much more interesting and terrifying place than it had been 30 minutes ago. Humans. Unbelievable. Terrifying. And apparently here to stay. Ancestors help us all.